And we're live. And hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world today. My name is Stuart Harris, and I'm the host of the show today, which is BizTVonline. And today we have a superb guest in the form of Federico Ray and Federico Ree, I should say. I always get that wrong, Federico, so I apologise for that.
Either way works totally fine. Thank you.
It's just an unusual name, but it's a special name, and you're a special guest. So it's great to have you along. Federico comes from creativeentrepreneur.com, and he's a expert coach and specialist in entrepreneurship and in intrapreneurship, which is, of course, what we're talking about today. The title of our hangout today is The Little Known Truth About Business Intrapreneurs and Why Their Presence is Vital to Maximizing Your Wealth. And I think this is a particularly poignant topic because there's a subtle undergrowth of this concept developing, and it's a very significant strategy for most businesses in any form whatsoever. Now, before we carry on, Federico, can I perhaps invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your connections in business currently?
Absolutely, Stuart. Firstly, thank you for having me again on Google Hangout. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to voice my feelings and my thoughts about entrepreneurship to the business community. I'm an entrepreneurial coach. I've been in business for nearly 2 decades, and essentially I love entrepreneurship. I'm actually quite passionate about entrepreneurship, is a better word. I enjoy working with all kinds of businesses, particularly those that are enterprising individuals that want to reach new heights of success, creative firms in whatever industry. So essentially, I'm here to energize people, to educate people, to inspire people to achieve greater things in their lives and in their business particularly. Essentially like the way I did it from a very young age. I started business when I was 22 and basically learnt my way through business and essentially discovered what it really feels like to be entrepreneurial, and now nearly 20 years on, I'm telling a story that if I did it, you can do it. So today's topic, yes, is about intrapreneurship, and it's one of those taboo or hidden topics that most of us don't come across every day. We all know about entrepreneurship, but certainly intrapreneurship is quite an unknown term or word out there in the Australian marketplace. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, what I do.
Yeah, and look, I totally agree. It seems to, especially in Australia here, seems to be under the radar as a business concept, as a business strategy, and you know, it shouldn't be really. I had a quick gander on the internet across what's happening in the United States, and they seem to have a little bit more of an understanding, and it seems to be a little bit more open over there, but there's still this mythical stigma. It's under the radar, as I feel it. Perhaps if you could give us a definition of intrapreneurship and how it's different from being an entrepreneur.
I guess let me start by giving you a brief outline of its history. We all know about entrepreneurship. We've obviously heard the term many times, and in fact entrepreneurship first appeared in the dictionary nearly 300 years ago, so it's got a very rich history. Intrapreneurship, on the other hand, has been barely mentioned in the dictionary for approximately 3 decades. So we're comparing 300 years versus 3 decades. The truth is that in Australia the term is new. However, overseas and abroad, particularly in the US, the UK, and other thriving nations, intrapreneurship is a commonly used term, apart from it being in the dictionary, and it's widely embraced within the workplace environment by business leaders, by managers, and by conventional and even enterprising individuals per se. So I guess my mission is to introduce the term to the marketplace in Australia and let people understand that intrapreneurs or entrepreneurial employees are people we should be seeking more, we should be employing more within organisations, and not have the belief that entrepreneurs are difficult to manage, or perhaps prefer to just have their own venture and do their own thing. So yes, there is a myth behind entrepreneurs, and my goal is to bust that myth, let's say, and I do that by educating people on really the true nature and subject of entrepreneurs.
Now, one of the big name entrepreneurs that springs to mind is, of course, Richard Branson, and I think he's quite vocal and open about how he leverages intrapreneurship. But perhaps if you could just elaborate a little bit for us about what an intrapreneur is, what they look like, and what is a typical mindset that they bring along with them.
Well, certainly entrepreneurs don't look like green aliens. They're just normal people, but with a different code of conduct, let's say, or a different type of mindset compared to the conventional employee. Now, I'm not knocking conventional employees. Obviously, they're dedicated, they're loyal, they're hardworking. That's absolutely a given. But entrepreneurs go one step further, or several steps further. They're driven by change. They're driven by constant innovation and the desire to challenge the status quo and to push those boundaries within an organisation. Now, you know, the dictionary has many definitions of an entrepreneur. I don't particularly like them because they describe an entrepreneur in a very plain old, simplistic, dry manner. But I prefer to say that an entrepreneurial employee is simply someone who thinks and acts like an entrepreneur but prefers to work within an organisation instead of having their own enterprise, and likes to drive innovation, likes to drive change, and likes to embrace emerging trends and technologies that are obviously constantly facing us in today's world. So, you know, entrepreneurs are really ordinary people but with a different code of conduct, and I mean, I can go further to say that entrepreneurs like to pursue their own goals as far as keeping themselves motivated and driven with what they do, but at the end of the day, it's for the welfare and for the interest of the company and its stakeholders, essentially.
Yeah, and look, I sort of find it difficult to separate them from, you know, entrepreneur, but they really are quite different. Because A, they're an employee of the organisation, and B, because their mindset is clearly different. They have a entrepreneurial mindset that's creating innovation, that's creating change, and seeking to widen the boundaries of what can be achieved in terms of where the company's going. But how do we declassify them from employee status? Because even though that's what they are, what separates them from being an employee, or rather, why would we not have employees as entrepreneurs?
I guess because I think your question's quite clear and obvious. In today's fast emerging world that we live in, with constant competition, with the GFC still nearby us, I think we need to constantly push the boundaries and remain competitive in this world. If we look at, you know, typical companies like Virgin, and you mentioned Richard Branson, Google, Apple, 3M, you know, Sony, and a lot of other advanced organisations, they certainly embrace entrepreneurial habits or entrepreneurial habits within the workplace, simply because they need to compete, they need to essentially stay ahead of the pack, and to do that you need talented, driven people within the organisation that push the boundaries, not just the business owner, not just the business leader, because if that person was doing that all on its own, all on his or her own, it just wouldn't be enough momentum to be able to push that business into another cycle or into another level of success or performance. So really, it requires a team culture. It requires an entrepreneurial culture that is widespread throughout the organisation. So it's a problem if you have an entrepreneurial boss or an entrepreneurial leader, which is quite common, but to have employees that are conventional employees that simply don't understand that culture of taking risk, of pushing the boundaries, of change and pioneering. So the better way is to merge as a united team with that same entrepreneurial mindset, code of conduct, or culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I've been having a look at some of the companies that are engaging entrepreneurship in a big way, and a couple of the big advantages that they seem to be achieving is that they have a greater motivation factor within the organization, and also more stability. And both of these concepts surprised me quite a bit. I thought that it could possibly be the opposite, that you'd have a demotivating factor, especially across employees who are watching these entrepreneurs, and the stability might not be there. What are some of the typical problems that may be associated with entrepreneurs as you engage that strategy, as you bring these type of people into your organization?
Look, there are real problems that do emerge and exist in any company, and some of those include the bureaucracy that may exist, the red tape, the policies and procedures that might restrict an employee or an entrepreneur to be able to do what he or she pleases. So if they're trying to challenge the status quo, that there are strict guidelines saying, no, you can't do that because it's risky or because this is the way the company has done it for many, many years, that could be certainly frustrating and demotivating for the entrepreneur. So it's important to have a forum or a platform where entrepreneurs can get together and discuss such ideas with the senior management team. So they have an opportunity to voice their feelings, to express their desires to change, and there's a two-way dialogue that happens where their ideas get recognised, their ideas get seriously noted, and that gives the entrepreneur hope that things eventually will change. And that's particularly the case with traditional old school organisations that have not obviously adopted entrepreneurial growth habits, but if you've got the right leader who is entrepreneurial and who's educated and understands the nature of entrepreneurship and what goes through the mindset of entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, then that will work if that dialogue and communication is allowed. So the typical problems also include obviously the frustration, the isolation as well. So you can have a situation where in an organisation you have conventional employees and the entrepreneur in the same environment. Sometimes the entrepreneur can be isolated, it can be kind of quarantined because they're just a little bit difficult, or perhaps they're just pushing the boundaries a little bit too far, and other employees might find that annoying or perhaps self-centered. So once again, that requires the management team to bring together the people and to educate and help people understand the meaning of that. And obviously, people like myself can come in to assist can come in to assist the workplace environment with the business leaders, the managers, to really understand how to tackle such problems. And part of my job as an entrepreneurial coach is to come in and actually sit down with people, run training workshops, and educate people really on how to embrace this new way of thinking, this new mindset.
Yeah, I think it's important to have guidance coming in from outside, and having the likes of your expertise coming in to assist companies. I think that there's such a dynamic, or dynamism is probably the word, with entrepreneurship that you would need to have some form of well, for want of a better word, control of development, and for coordination of what activities these entrepreneurs are involved with. Some of the other areas that would concern me a bit is perhaps transients. These people are very, very capable in terms of what they can do for organisations, and they could be headhunted. What would you do in that situation? How would you ensure that they continue to play a part in the company beyond a short-term period?
I guess loyalty is a widespread problem to any employer, especially with the younger generation. I call them the Generation Y, or even the millennials, those who who are in their 20s who might be very entrepreneurially minded and spirited, but they don't have necessarily the loyalty because they want things to happen immediately and they want to be acknowledged and recognized for their efforts, and if they don't get recognized fast enough, they will jump ship and literally move on to something else. So it's important for a business leader, for the business owner, to really understand the mindset of the younger generation and how they think differently to the older generation. Gone are the days where employees have to work their way through the different ranks and dedicate 20 years of their career within that same business to be recognised or to have a senior title, or to even get some sort of credit or acknowledgement or incentive or bonus. These days, millennials, Generation Y employees want things to happen right away. And with regards to entrepreneurs, it is very much the same thing. Yes, entrepreneurs might come across as being more impatient, so yes, to some extent they want to be recognised sooner than later, but if the entrepreneur is mature and has an open dialogue with the boss, they need to also understand that there are parameters, there are restrictions within the organisation, and they might be financial restrictions, operational issues that might be there at the time. So with proper education coming the other way, as in from the employer to the entrepreneur, if the employer explains carefully what is going on with those issues, the entrepreneur should be able to just hang on and be patient. And I guess that's just communication regardless. But yes, entrepreneurs tend to be a little bit more hasty, impatient than the conventional employee, because they want results to happen now, because they're highly motivated, highly driven, and highly enthused. And they often believe that, okay, if it's not going to happen in this company, it's going to happen in some other company. And that's typically the mindset of a younger employee.
Thanks for that. Now, very quickly, I just want to cover off these intrapreneurs provide innovation to the organisation, and they would push the boundaries because of what they're seeking to do and the liberties that they're provided to helping the business grow. Federico, how would we go about finding a relevant intrapreneur and introducing them into our business? What would be the process that we would engage in to do that?
It's a very good question. I don't think there is such a thing like a seek.com for attracting just the intrapreneur. So it really comes down to knowing the right type of person through traditional interviewing, and just being able to identify the diamond in the rough, or being able to identify the gem amongst the many candidates that present for the particular job. However, there are hubs, there are platforms in the marketplace that attract enterprising individuals, that attract people that are certainly entrepreneurially minded, and even within that space, even though a lot of them are business owners per se, there are also intrapreneurs that hang around those environments. And if you, for example, go to meetup.com, which is a platform where events, groups, networking events are held, and you type in entrepreneurship, you'll come across hundreds of groups that attract members that are entrepreneurially minded, including the intrapreneurs. And from that list, you'll be able to find names of people who certainly embrace that kind of thought process, who believe in that philosophy wholeheartedly. I actually have my own group called the Face of Entrepreneurs, and you can find that on meetup.com. The Face of Entrepreneurs, I've actually just recently launched and co-founded with 3 other members in Melbourne, and the aim of the game is to attract entrepreneurially spirited individuals, including the intrapreneurs. And certainly already now in my group, I have a number of members who are intrapreneurs. And if an employer was to ask me, can you recommend anyone who's entrepreneurial, I'll be saying, well, firstly, in my group of members, there's a whole bunch of them, and that's just my own group. And like I said, on meetup.com, there are lots of other groups that attract such people. So I think it's not that hard to identify them. You've just got to do some basic research online, and if you go to these hubs, these platforms like Meetup, you'll find them.
Great. Now, I think that was at meetup.com, and you're looking for the segment called The Face of Entrepreneurs, which is headed up by Federico. Now, Federico, if somebody was looking to enter the workforce as an intrapreneur, or they've already been involved with business, but they want to develop their intrapreneurship skills, what would they be doing right now to set themselves up for that process?
I guess you can either source internal training that the company might offer. However, that's often hard to find unless the company themselves work with coaches like myself that come in and provide in-house training. If the company itself does not provide such training, then the employee or the intrapreneur can search other ways of receiving that type of training, including coming to me directly. And I have a number of programs, one particularly called Train Your Intrapreneurial Skills. In other words, it's polishing up your skill set to be able to think more intrapreneurially and adapt the entrepreneurial mindset within the workplace environment. So this particular product that I have is simply a one-day masterclass or a 4-week online program, and employees simply come to me and they receive intense coaching on how to embrace the entrepreneurial mindset within their roles and really absorb what entrepreneurs or how entrepreneurs think, and it's kind of contagious because entrepreneurs attract entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs also attract intrapreneurs and vice versa. So if an intrapreneur spends a whole day with me, they'll have the bug, and the bug of entrepreneurship is simply the way they think, which is very different to the everyday person.
Sure, and if you're an entrepreneur yourself and you're heading up your company, or a CEO of your own company, but it's got entrepreneurial processes and tendencies, what would you say are the best practices for managing entrepreneurs in your management team? What are the key elements that you would have operating so that they integrate effectively in that team?
Like I said to you before, having a meeting platform, say once a month, where ideas can be exchanged and shared, where there are no boundaries, there are no parameters. Basically, anyone can say anything, and those ideas get seriously noted. I think it's important not just to get together, have a chat, and then go back to conventional work. I think it's a matter of seriously noting the ideas down, the opportunities, and actually giving that intrapreneur maybe a level of autonomy or a level of authority to go off and explore, research, or implement such ideas. Yes, at the risk of it not working, but embracing risk is part of the process and part of the methodology. But that has to be managed accordingly at the time if anything maybe blows up or doesn't simply work. So seriously taking note of that, and also making the effort of spreading the word around to the team, and also embracing other staff that may not necessarily appear entrepreneurial, but respecting the way they think, and also getting them to understand how entrepreneurs think and not isolating the two together. I think it's also important to acknowledge reward, acknowledge effort through reward, by incentivizing, by maybe having an award, or by offering a prize or a gift, and having again a platform where acknowledgement is given for effort, for stepping outside the box, for increased motivation, for increased commitment, for increased risk taking. And I think that's just taking things a little bit further. So we all talk about KPIs. Yes, that's relevant, but I'm more talking about KPIs that directly hinge on the entrepreneurial way of doing business. So if those KPIs are met, there needs to be acknowledgement and reward on a public level to, I guess, attract and inspire other people to do the same.
Sure, and look, I'm just going to deviate this a little bit because, as we know, intrapreneurs could add a challenging element to any organisation, in the event that they have ideas, concepts, or even activities that go wrong, or completely fail, which in some cases they will, what sort of setup would a business have to accommodate that? How would they make sure that they could continue to operate effectively and viably with that type of activity happening, particularly if there was, you know, a 50% fail in the work that was being done by the intrapreneur?
Look, I know, and most entrepreneurs know, that not every idea goes to plan. In fact, more ideas fail than succeed. So it's just an inherent problem that risk-taking, that pioneering new ideas, new concepts generally tend to fail more than tend to succeed. If the employer understands that wholeheartedly and simply accepts that as part of the formula, then risk or failure, for that matter, is accepted more openly. Now, if we're talking about financial risk, obviously there is a certain limit to how much risk can be accepted. I guess that needs to be clearly communicated. So if things fail, okay, to what extent can it fail? I think it's also worth noting that intrapreneurs at the end of the day can go home after a day's job, and if it fails, well, it's up to the boss to fix up, really. So whilst intrapreneurs are entrepreneurially spirited, let's also note that intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs are very different in terms of their responsibilities. The entrepreneur, or let's just say the business owner, at the end of the day carries the bulk of the responsibility. So if something goes wrong, if the intrapreneur does something that's just not right, it is the entrepreneur or the business owner that has to fix up the problem. So I think that distinction has to be made, that the entrepreneur is the boss. The intrapreneur has to still respect that and accept that, and the intrapreneur doesn't get too cocky or doesn't get too overly confident and forget the fact that they can go home and not worry about the financial burden, for example, of what has been caused by the failure of their idea or their project.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that intrapreneurs tend to be more objective about their approach, and that they can generally be trusted to deliver fairly high performance across what they're doing as well. So, you know, whilst there might be some elements of failure, there's definitely the plus side, which delivers much more for the organisation, and is probably the reason why the likes of Richard Branson and Larry Page are heavily engaging in this type of strategy, because the return on the investment, the spin-off is just so much greater for most organisations when done properly. Qualify that. Now, very quickly, Federico, you've talked briefly about some of the coaching that you offer. Do you want to just elaborate on that and tell us where we can go to find that coaching that you're providing?
Absolutely. Firstly, my website is www.creativeentrepreneur.com.au. My bespoke niche business coaching practice is Melbourne-based. However, I do also offer my programs online and also interstate, depending on what the requirement is. So if you go to the website, you'll see a whole range of products and programs, starting with the basic mentoring, which is maybe a starting point for someone who needs a bit of guidance and a bit of motivational kick up the bum, let's say, excuse the expression. Then you have the coaching, that either is business coaching or personal development coaching, and there are two sides to the coin, I guess. With coaching, it's about business coaching, and there's also that personal coaching about your own performance, your own skill set, your own mindset. Then I also offer a range of consultancy services that relate to business development, business advisory. So collectively, my services are very bespoke and very unique, based on my experience of nearly 20 years in business, and because of my entrepreneurial spirit, because of my true belief that entrepreneurship is the way of the future, what I preach is certainly contagious, and because it's contagious, it certainly does create an energy and a self-belief system in my clients, where they might start off feeling doubtful, or they're feeling negative, or they're feeling unsure about the possibilities and the opportunities, and with just a simple 1 hour interaction, they suddenly become enthused, they become clear about their vision, and suddenly their motivation kick starts again, and it just goes off like a big bang. So coaching doesn't necessarily require lots and lots of sessions or a 12-month program, and there are lots of products out there that talk about 6 months or 40 weeks or whatever it is. My services are also very potent, even with the one session. So yes, I offer long-term programs for those that are wanting long-term growth in their own personal development and also in their own business development. But sometimes someone needs to just pick up the phone, have a chat with me, and get inspired or get motivated, or maybe develop the confidence to do something that is outside their comfort zone, and that can be simply achieved with a half-hour conversation.
Yeah, and it's very important that we connect with the likes of yourself, Federico, because personally I didn't know much about intrapreneurship at all either, and the term sort of has this mythical feel to it. What is it? Why is it? And we've covered all of that today very succinctly, and I think it's very worthwhile for anyone who watches in and who's currently watching in that they make the step and connect with you to find out how they can make this work for them, because it adds such a big dimension to what's going on. And if the likes of Richard Branson and Larry Page are doing this, why are they doing it? There has to be a big takeaway from applying yourself and getting the knowledge.
Absolutely. Yep. It's obvious, we don't need to elaborate on the success of Virgin. We know the success, but they're just two of many, many examples. And if you immerse yourself into the American work culture and that of other nations like the UK, you'll realize just how mainstream intrapreneurship really is, and all it takes is to go online and discover that. So I do welcome all kinds of people to contact me, so not just the business owner or not just the person who thinks they're an entrepreneur, but also the conventional employee. The conventional employee, there are lots of you out there who are in their jobs, perhaps don't feel inspired. So you have two options. You either stay where you are and not be necessarily fulfilled, or you have another option of embracing the entrepreneurial way of life, either internally as an intrapreneur or externally as an entrepreneur. And sometimes working internally is the better choice as compared to an employee deciding to quit their job and to start a business, which obviously incurs much, much greater risk than simply working within that organization. So I encourage you to contact me and I guess to discover more about intrapreneurship, and also to learn how you can become the intrapreneur within your organization, to impress your boss, to advance your career, and also to outperform other candidates, and obviously be satisfied and fulfilled by the work you do.
And look, where you can go is to creativeentrepreneur.com.au, and you'll get access to everything that Federico has just talked about. Also, just a reminder about meetup.com. You can go there and find the face of entrepreneurs, and that will connect you to a fair bit of content as well, and exposure to other entrepreneurs that are doing exactly what we're talking about today. Federico, before we wind up, do you want to add any final comments in regards to what we've been talking about?
One more comment, Stuart. I guess the point that I've made today is quite clear. Anyone who's seriously looking at transforming their mindset to better their lives and better their career, please don't hesitate to call me. Even if you want to give me a call on the mobile, 0408 510 378, and that's in Australia. And for anyone who does call me in the next few days, or let's be precise, in the next week, I'm happy to offer you a 10% discount on all of my programs, just to illustrate how useful and how practical these programs are for you. So I hope today's been inspirational to the audience, and the message is quite clear that intrapreneurs are talented, good people and worth considering, and hopefully I've busted the myth of intrapreneurship.
Yes, you have, Federico. It's been very, very, very good. I've learned a lot today and understand intrapreneurship a lot more. Get along to Federico's website, creativeentrepreneur.com.au, and skill set is what it's all about. Skill up and find out what you need to do to make something special happen in your organisation. And with that, I'm closing out. Thank you very much for everyone attending today, and thank you, Federico, for your attendance today and your contribution.
Thank you, Stuart. Talk to you soon.